Phi Nguyen and I'm your host on Inside Vietnam.
This is a fantastic market because of the strength of the population.
You have to Vietnamize your content here.
I would tell them to come on board, tell them what they like or give them what they like.
Vietnam is a very, very dynamic and exciting market.
Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Phi Nguyen and I'm your host on Inside Vietnam. The inflation hike of 2008 in Vietnam was reported to be due to the market speculation when people borrow money from banks to play on stock market as well as to invest into the real estate sector. It was indeed a crazy year in Vietnam where some people got rich overnight simply by immediate property ownership transfer. However, after the tightening of bank loans in 2009 following the GFC, we have also seen a series of local speculators and developers going bankrupt. The real estate sector has been referred to as a frozen sector ever since. With real estate as one of the key sectors for foreign investment community in Vietnam, we have invited a special guest speaker today on the show. Let us welcome Mr. David Lyons, Managing Director of Jones Lang Lasalle Vietnam, who will be discussing the current situation and future outlook of the much debated real estate sector. Good day to you, David, and thank you very much for joining us on Inside Vietnam.
Thank you, Phi.
I understand that the real estate sector has been a very hot sector in the last few years, especially from 2008 where there's a hike in inflation and there's a lot of speculation on the market. After that, the sector sort of goes into a frozen period. What is the current situation of the actual real estate sector in your opinion?
It's on the way to recovery, definitely. There's been moderate growth since the 2008 period. I think the main factors that are influencing that growth are the government's policy on controlling inflation, number one. The initialising of capital works programs. There's a lot of infrastructure coming out of the ground. A big improvement in administrative procedures, more transparency in transaction procedures. All of those factors are going towards a major recovery in the real estate sector.
Given the fact that the sector has been in some sort of frozen period for the last few years, is there growth in the sector at all?
There's definite growth. I mean, it's you've just got to look at the infrastructure, as I've mentioned before, but also the development that's coming out of the ground in the major cities and up and down the coastline. So yes.
There is growth.
There is growth.
Yes.
In
what sort of sectors or areas do you see growth?
Well, if you have a look at the first graph that we're going to show, just on capital value during the last 5 years, 2006 to 2010, and this first graph shows residential. You'll see a huge spike in the luxury market from 5 years ago to about 2,500 a square metre for residential luxury units, up to now just under 4,500 a square metre. So I mean, it's a huge jump. The other markets, the premium, mid and the low end have increased. The low end has been more stable and steady.
So beside residential, as in luxury and lower end markets, what are the other growth areas in Vietnam at the moment?
I think one of the main growth areas is going to be retail. And the reason I say that is disposable income in Vietnam is the core driver for consumer spending. And that's expected to grow 13.6% over the next 5 years, which is a fairly...
That's 13.6% year on year?
No, over the next 5 years.
Over the next few years.
Yeah. But food and groceries are likely to be the greatest opportunities in that particular sector. Furniture and appliance and semi-durable goods will remain buoyant because obviously with the residential increasing, you've got to remember that every time an apartment is built, someone has to buy a refrigerator, white goods, furniture, so all of that comes along with the strong residential
Let me ask
growth.
you a question though, David. Retail development normally couples with the development in the real estate sector. So you got to have shopping malls or, space for people to actually do retail.
Yes.
How is retail going to be developed in Vietnam if the real estate sector is not developed?
Well, the real estate sector is developing, and when I talk about the real estate sector developing, I'm talking predominantly residential, because that's leading the charge, that's leading what happens. And then, as I said earlier, the retail sector, and all the other sectors follow on the back of that.
So there must be a lot of demand in retail space at the moment in Vietnam. Is that what you're saying?
There is. If we look at a graph that we've got here, current supply of retail market in Ho Chi Minh City, the number of projects in the offing at the moment from retail is 6, shopping centres are 19, department stores are about 6, supermarkets are 61.
61 supermarkets to be established in Vietnam.
Yes.
Is that over the next 5 years?
That's in Ho Chi Minh City, not Vietnam.
Right.
Just in Ho Chi Minh City. So what we're saying there is the demand for these particular products is obviously following the residential supply that's being put out and occupied.
Are these more foreign invested projects, or are they more local?
It's a mixture of both. A lot more of the foreign entities in the retail sector are looking and coming in now. It has been driven by local for quite a long time.
So in other words, the retail space that we're talking about right now is short of supply, so there'll be a lot more supply in the future. Is that what you're saying?
There will be, and there'll be a shift in the marketing trends. I mean, it will definitely come over the next 5 years, more of the traditional malls that you find in other Asian cities and in other Western countries throughout the world.
I love malls.
Yeah,
I want more malls in Vietnam.
Every lady does, don't they? Yeah.
So how is supply versus demand at the moment, at this current?
Demand far outstrips supply because it's again, it's a very new market, it's a new concept. And it's going to be exciting when it does happen. What's going to have to happen though is the major owners and developers of malls globally are going to have to get behind and bring in their best practice and knowledge and know-how to do those.
So they do have their eyes on Vietnam.
Most definitely.
Already.
Most definitely.
According to various reports from leading real estate companies, supply of apartments for sale is way over demand, with supply reaching 18,500 units, a 9% increase from the previous quarter and double from the same period last year. Quarter 1 of 2011 has seen 14 new projects being launched, adding a total of 5,000 new units into the supply pool, recording an increase of 25% in comparison to the last quarter. With demand spiraling down due to limited access to credit, speculation seems to slow down and sales in the residential segment tend to move towards servicing actual house owners. With regards to office space for lease, there is a short-term downward trend. However, with the mid and long-term outlook of the Vietnamese economy being on the continuous upward trend, the future looks bright. In the past, I would say the developers would just build whatever and people would just flock in and buy.
Yes.
But right now there's a lot more concern on quality.
Yes, exactly right. You now have to set up not only the apartments but the facilities and ongoing facilities that run with that complex as they go, such as maybe shops or some retail in the complex, leisure facilities, pools, tennis courts, ample parking, and more a management system that when the developer does walk out and leaves, that it's an ongoing sustainable development that doesn't fall apart because no one's bothered to set up the management system of the building moving forward.
But with supply catching up with demand at the moment, do you see pricing actually go down in the market?
Prices won't go down, they probably level out for a little time.
Well, it looks like the forecast for the future is bright, do you think?
Yes, definitely. In the residential sector, most definitely.
Are there a lot of office projects in the pipeline for Ho Chi Minh City?
Look, there is. In 2012, you will witness approximately 512,000 square metres of additional space. That's grade A, B and C.
Yeah.
And that's predominantly coming from developments that are currently under construction. And they're coming out of the ground now.
So we talked about growth rates, we talked about the development of the sector in Vietnam, which is really good for yourself and your company. Are there any challenges though in this sector for you?
I think the factors that are influencing the particular real estate market, economic growth, inflation, infrastructure investment, bank interest rates, government policies, as we've talked about earlier, the lack of transparency still on information and administration process, and again we've talked about that, where that's now, it's still emerging and coming out and rapidly improving. And the high cost of construction materials. I mean, they're just broad overviews of the challenges that are facing the market.
High cost of construction. Is that because of construction? Is that because of the rising inflation in Vietnam?
Well, it's a combination of all of those, but also, you know, materials. A lot of the materials are imported, so there's economies of scale whereby, obviously, if a company can import in bulk, it becomes a lot cheaper than in the early days when they were just doing ad hoc development, so it's quite expensive for them to do that. So again, as the market emerges, economies of scale will come down because they're ordering more and more, and it's just a simple...
What about workmanship? I think it's one of the issues for Vietnam as well in this particular
yeah,
sector.
look, I'd say it was. I mean, it's international standards, and again, we've used that term before, but if foreign investment is to come in and to be attracted and to come in, the building standards and building codes have to meet basic international standards. Now, that's probably been an area that has been let down in the past, but in our experience, that is being met head on by the government as we speak, and also by developers.
Now, with the presence of JLL in the Vietnamese market, I assume that the property management services companies are actually doing pretty well in Vietnam?
Well, they should be doing a lot better. Property management has suddenly become a very big and important factor in the running of any building, be it commercial, residential, retail.
Is it dominated by international companies though?
It is at this stage.